Here. And welcome everybody to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 18th of July 2024. So the opening council, in accordance with the Weddin Shire Council's Code of Meeting Practices, this meeting will be recorded for the purposes of audio-visual live streaming via Council's website and Facebook page. Those in attendance are asked to refrain from making any defamatory statements and comply with all relevant Weddin Shire Council codes, policies, procedures at all times. Weddin Shire Council would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present or watching. We honour our service personnel who have sacrificed their lives in defence of our freedom, peace and prosperity. We acknowledge all of our frontline workers and volunteers who each day provide our essential and non-essential services, especially those within our Weddin Shire local government area. Thank you. We have attendances and applications for leave. Mr Acting General Manager?
We have one application for leave, which is the Mayor Craig Bembrick, Councillor Bembrick.
Councillor Bembrick. Anyone like to accept the... Yes, moved by Councillor Frame, seconded by Councillor Diprose. All those in favour accept it. Thank you. Right. Passed. That's it. So we have apologies, no apologies. Yes, so...
And Craig.
And Craig's an apology as well.
Sorry, Councillor Bembrick, is it
the Mayor.
Apology.
General Manager, mate.
She's got leave of absence.
Yeah. Yep.
So, anyone like to move that we accept the apology from the Mayor, Craig Bembrick? Councillor McKellar and seconded by Councillor Knar. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Thank you. So we have no leaves of absence and no applications of leave of absence, I don't believe. No. So the confirmation of the minutes. That's all right. Would anyone like to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting on 20th of June 2024? Are there any issues? Councillor Diprose, happy to move it, and seconded by Councillor Parlett. All those in favour accept the minutes?
Aye.
Yeah, passed. Thank you. I'll get through them quick. Disclosure of interest. Oh, yes.
Yes, Mr Chair, we've got one disclosure. Councillor Cook, item 11.4, sorry, Tourism Committee. Pecuniary, no. Non-pecuniary, yes. Significant, no. Leaving the room, no. That's the only one.
So just noting, councillors, that under our heading of our minutes and committees, the minutes from the meetings will be tabled under this heading. Unfortunately, due to a data input error, the items that have been included in item 11 for corporate services, in particular item 11.4. So staff wish to apologise for any confusion and make sure that they'll be rectifying that issue on going forward. So they're incorrectly put into the corporate services report instead of being a separate item. That's all. So but just a bit of mistake in formatting, that's all. We have a public forum. No public forum tonight. Unless Michael wants to say anything. No. Okay, we'll move on to item 8, mayoral reports. As the mayor's not here, I should put his report forward. He's put in his paper there a little about the success of the Henry Lawson Festival, how good it was this year, and commending the committee on a great day. In particular, the President, Belinda Powers, and all the executives who sit on that committee. We'd like to thank them and all the volunteers for all their effort they put forward. The Mayor would also like to say a special thanks to Caddy Marshall from Ready Marketing, who supports the festival and in that management space. So thank you very much. It was a very successful festival this year. He's also got period part section there on the National General Assembly that the Mayor and the General Manager attended. But I think particular noting for this council is we should be thanking, we should be congratulating the two of our employees that have received scholarships this month. The Director of Corporate Services, John, will be attending the Integrated Planning Conference in Canberra after being awarded the Integrated Planning Scholarship, which is congratulations.
Thank you.
And our General Manager has also been awarded an inaugural scholarship to attend the Society of Local Authorities Chief Executives and Senior Managers Summit in Manchester in the United Kingdom. So well done to the General Manager as well. A comment? Oh, comment, Councillor Cruz?
Yeah, congrats to Dorian and to John. It's great. Well done. Just interested to know, what's council's financial commitment to that? Is it any financial commitment?
I believe it's a full scholarship.
So it's
Full scholarship.
Great.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you through the mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, move on then. Oh, sorry, someone to accept the... Oh, sorry, Councillor Cook, do you have a comment?
Just like to say there's, you thanked everyone for that Henry Lawson Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and just we had Minister Cook at the parade that day,
Mm-hmm.
and I think her speech also involved thanking Councillor Parlett for all the work that she does as a committee member, and it's not in these minutes, and I just thought it was worth noting that Councillor Parlett puts a lot of effort into the Henry Lawson Festival too, with Belinda. So thank you them both.
But Councillor Cook, that Jan was part of the executive, but you're no longer a part of the executive, so
No, she's not.
that's all right. That's what I thought we were thanking you under that.
No.
Thank you very much.
Don't go to meetings, don't go, just do the work behind the scenes.
Yep, well done. Thank you. So we have someone to accept the mayoral minute, just for noting. So don't need to accept it, do we? Motions, questions with notice? None. No. So we'd like to move on to 10, which is the General Manager report, which will be presented by the Acting General Manager, Mr. Luke Sheen.
Move in a second.
Oh, you want to move in a second? Okay.
It's got a recommendation.
Sorry?
It's got a recommendation, so we're going to have to move in a second. We're going to discuss it.
For 10?
Yeah, 10.1.
Oh, okay, yes, well, the recommendations that we note the resolution. So, then I'd like to move the report for a discussion. Yeah, moved by Councillor Frame, second by Councillor Diprose. Yep.
Thank
For
you,
discussion.
Mr Chair. So it's pretty much just our standard report in terms of the resolution register. So there's been some updates on those based on the action taken since last month. And it's just for council's information and noting.
Any councillors got any questions regarding the resolutions? Councillor Cook?
Oh, someone else got one?
No, it's okay. Councillor Cook?
Sorry, I just don't know which resolution. It's in regard to the tips, and I'm wondering if the letter to the Minister has gone out.
Through you, Mr Chair, it hasn't at the moment. We've had some pretty constructive conversations with the EPA, so we're just sort of mindful of that we seem to be sort of having a fairly moving forward with that. So, and there seems to be sort of some open-mindedness to sort of come back to a reasonable position, hopefully. So we've been having regular meetings with the EPA. We had one about a week and a half ago, and we've got another one early next month. And it's hopefully that we're sort of setting a bit of a change in terms of our thinking around that. So there is a little bit of work that we're looking at doing just to, I suppose, satisfy the EPA requirements around that encapsulation of some of the contaminated soil on site to reduce our costs. So they have been quite amicable to that and helped us a fair bit over the last couple of weeks. So no, we haven't sent that letter, but that's based on the pretense that we've been moving forward with the EPA.
So what happens with the resolution? Because it was a resolution of council to send that. So how to...
Look, I suppose it's still there. We were just sort of waiting to see probably how we go with the next meeting with the EPA. So whether that's, as I said, it might be another further report next month to come back from myself in terms of whether we need to move forward with that letter. But as it currently stands, things are progressing fairly well. So we're reasonably happy with that, but as I said, things could change, so we still have that, but I'd say it'll be another report back to council in August, which we can clear that up, if you like.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very good. The premise behind the letter was obviously to get things moving, and if you're saying that the things are moving, it's probably a good idea to hold off on it until for another month, so that'd be good if we could receive that report next month.
Thank you.
And that's right. No other comments, councillors? No? So we've got that. Everyone accept that report? Hands, please. The recommendation. Thank you. It's approved. It's passed. Thank you. We're up to now. 10.2, Council's expenses reports.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So, as per the Weddin Shire Council Expenses and Facilities Policy, Council must report on the provision of expenses and facilities to councillors. So, this is also a requirement under the Local Government Act. So, the policy provides that the expenses and facilities for each councillor must be publicly tabled at a council meeting every 6 months. So, this is the latest report. And it's got to be broken down into individual councillor and the total amount for all councillors. So there's a recommendation there just for noting.
Yep, recommendation Council notes report. The mover. Yep, moved by Councillor Frame, seconded by Councillor Parlett. All those in favour? Show of hands, aye. All those against? None, thank you, carried.
Just a comment.
Councillor Dibros?
Just out of interest, I decided to, because I'm 25 k's from town, to try and work out how many k's I've done the current term of council. 7,164. So, if you live a fair way from town,
It adds up.
It adds up.
Right, okay, next one is, corporate service, that's yours.
John.
Move on to the corporate service report. That's the Director, John Thompson, sorry.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So I'd like to present firstly the Arts 11.1 Arts Tourism events and grants activities for the period to June 2024. This is for Council to note, and it's really information which just highlights the activities that have been taking place. We're proud of what we've done, and also what our staff have been able to do in tourism, particularly in terms of applying for grants for council, but also in terms of the activity, whether it's that's been conducted and performed in the period, and I know that it's a real emphasis to try and attract tourists into town, and that goes hand in glove with attracting businesses into town and promoting the town and the Shire. So I'll leave that with you for noting, for your own review. 11.2, so we've got a few policies that we've...
So we probably need to move in a second.
Yeah, we're going to move in second to accept that for noting.
Just a question.
Yeah, Councillor Dibros.
I noticed in there that it's got the Grenfell to Greenthorpe Rail Trail meeting. Is there anything to note from that? Anything of public interest?
Sorry, I missed that.
The rail trail, is there any...
Rail Trail meeting. I didn't know anything about that. So. I can talk to you after the meeting.
Yeah, just...
Sorry, what was the...
Well, you've listed an item in there looking around the Grenfell to Greenthorpe Rail Trail, and I was just curious to know what might have come out of that meeting.
That's right. That's right. We can move on. Maybe next month we could discuss it. That's all, John.
I'll take that on notice.
Yeah, that's taken notice, John.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's all right.
Accepted.
Yes, so we have moved and seconded for that one. Councillor Dibro, seconded by Councillor Howell. All those in favour of accepting the report?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? So moved. Thank you. Yep, 11.2.
We'll have a move in a second before we start.
Have a move, yes, we'll have a move and acceptance. So we're doing the adoption of sale or disposal of assets on items policy, moved by Councillor Frame, seconded by Councillor Kanar. Speak on it, please, John.
Okay, thank you, Acting Mayor. So this policy went out for public exhibition, and we didn't receive any other comments back.
Yeah.
However, we have also discussed it internally, and we've gone through with some proposed changes to that. So one, it's just a title change. We've included the word items to it, which we think is important. It's a definitional thing, but it actually allows for low value assets, i.e. under $1,000, which has been in keeping with our own internal accounting policies as well. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is that just to include, and I'll refer through to the bullet point around organic items like wood, things like that. So it's just broadening it, saying it is actually, it's not, we're including that as an item, or it has value, and therefore it's property, and therefore it's technically an asset and an item. It's included together. Mm-hmm. So that's the purpose of that. we've also included repurposing of existing items, particularly around, you know, an example would be playground equipment, rather than just pulling it out of Taylor Park and saying we don't have a use for it anymore.
Yeah.
Let's try and recycle it where we can and use it across the communities or somewhere else where we can in the villages.
Yeah.
And that would be for any assets. The third one was around just a reclassification of land, where particularly if you're moving from an operational to a community to an operational. So that was just more a legislative requirement to just make sure we're lining that up properly and referencing to it. They're the changes, so over to you.
That's all right. Any questions
for adoption?
No questions regarding it? No?
Yeah.
No. Councillor Cook?
On page 47, it says the person responsible for the delegation of all council buildings is now the Director of Environmental Services. I'm just wondering what the reasoning behind that coming away from, or no, if it was previously going, or the responsibility of the Director of Corporate Services, because they would be, from my understanding, would be across the assets and the lists and all that, that they would be, you know, in the best position to be looking after buildings of council. And do you want me to keep going? So I know there's a time limit on me talking. So the second one I've got is 7.1.2, land and buildings that are identified by the task force. And I'm just wondering if you could explain the task force as opposed to decisions like that coming back to council, as opposed to a task force. I am concerned as well with the additions of the 7.1.3, which is the operational land and the organic waste. If that is a change that means that the policy has to go back to community consultation, because there's significant changes. And on the organic waste, if you could possibly explain the meaning of organic waste, and I say you can see weeds and, wood and garden clippings, but I'm reading this as an asset policy, and it's, to me, an asset is something tangible, whereas waste, like garden waste, I would think would be a day-to-day operational issue of, you know, lawn clippings when the parks and gardens are done, and how that fits in with our council policy on waste.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. So in terms of the buildings, I actually manage the buildings. So I do all the maintenance and those, it falls under the Director of Environmental Services. So I suppose that was the reasoning why bringing that back to the sale of them falls with that person. Now, in terms of, I suppose, the delegation, obviously it wouldn't be up to a single person to make that call as to whether we're going to sell a council asset. So up the top of the policy, you'll see roles and responsibilities. So it'll talk about the Director of Environmental Services is the delegate for all council buildings subject to council resolution. So that would mean, obviously, if we wanted to sell a property or a piece of land, that would be by council resolution. In terms of just the task force, what was the clause there, Councillor Cook?
7.1.2.
Land and buildings that are identified by the task force.
So, I mean, that could just be an internal thing where we will have a look at whether there's potential for a property or to be sold, but again, that would need to filter back to a council resolution to sell any land or item. The policy has been updated. I know there has been some of those headings probably haven't filtered through, but the intention is that the name of the policy will be the sale, disposal of council assets or items policy. So that is on the first page, but it may not have filtered through to some of the headings on the subsequent pages. So the reason for that is that I suppose the intention of this policy is to pass the pub test too. So when we're selling assets, we need to be really mindful, being a public authority, what we do with those assets and also any items. So while it may not be an asset, we still need to make sure that we're dealing with other items appropriately. So the example is things like timber, organics. Obviously, we don't expect our gardeners to go and do some weeding. They're not actually taking those weeds home. They take those to the waste facility. But if someone's if we're doing some tree clearing or whatever it may be, we don't want staff, without the appropriate approval, taking things off a council site and taking those home without there being a trail, an audit trail to say, look, they've got the prior approval to do that, because obviously the public look at our staff out and about and sort of working hard. We don't want to be answering questions to say, well, these items ended up at someone's house or private residence. So it's not about, there are circumstances where it may be appropriate in certain circumstances, but that's just meaning that they've got to go through and get the approval of their appropriate supervisor to do that. In terms of timber, wood, so if we're cutting down trees, obviously with the amount of roadworks that we do from time to time, there is a fair bit of timber. So it's a matter of, we have a roadside vegetation management plan which aims to try and ensure that a lot of that is left on the side of the road, within the road reserve, as critical habitat where possible. Where it needs to be removed, it can be taken to our waste facility at Grenfell mainly, because we actually use that, we chip that and use that as cover, which is quite important for us. We're always chasing cover out there for the coverage of our waste cells and things, so that's the reason for it. I think, is that answer most of the questions?
If I can just ask two more. When we're talking about the waste, my question was, how is it an asset? Because to me, to dispose of an asset under this policy, it has to be classed as an asset first, and that's going to be a lot of work for John.
Or item.
Yeah, or item. So that's the reason why we've changed the policy to assets or item, so that we can pick those up. So it will cover all the assets, but we thought it was important to also pick up any items that don't fall within that definition, that we need to make sure that we're disposing of those appropriately.
And then the other redirect question is 7.4.1, and that was with regard to disposal on the task force, because it says assets disposal will be assessed on a case-by-case basis for when they're more than $1,000 by the directorate. It's been changed, and the attached member will be completed and considered by the general manager. So that doesn't actually, in that part, seems to take out the council.
Well, it depends on what it is. I mean, if there's a small minor asset which might be worth that $1,500, when you're selling a lawnmower, I wouldn't expect that probably would have to come back to council. But if we're selling a parcel of land or a council building, then those things would need to come back. So I mean, we obviously dispose of assets regularly when we're changing cars and all those. So we have a plant replacement thing, so policy. So there is checks and balances along the way. So it's just not one person making a decision. It's usually maybe the supervisor or a ganger going through the director or manager, director, and then ultimately the sign-off by the general manager.
But and I understand that, but it doesn't actually say that in here, because it just says any asset over 1,000.
But then it says the strategic worth of the asset has to be considered. So it says further on that.
But it says considered in comment, but it doesn't actually say come to council.
But then I suppose you have to also read the rest of the policy up the front, where it sort of says, well, I only have the delegation around buildings subject to council resolution. So it doesn't mean that I can just go off and say, well, if it's less over $1,000, I can get the general manager to sign off on it. That would be subject to the council resolution.
But can we add in those words subject to council? You know, should there be a dollar figure in there, or some sort of...
I'd just be mindful around the amount of items and assets that we have to rotate on a yearly basis to bring that back to council would be pretty onerous. So certainly those big ticket items like buildings and property, but with the sheer amount of equipment and those types of things that we dispose of all the time, I think it'd be sort of to sort of defeat the purpose of it'd be hamstringing us all the time to bring those back to continuing council.
Can I suggest that that those would fall under operational and not council, but I think also you have to take the whole of this document, not just cherry pick bits out of it, because in its entirety it makes sense, but I think if you just looking at single points,
Yep.
it doesn't. So you need to look at the document in the entirety.
And through you, Mr. Chair, it also feeds into things like our plant replacement budget, our budget, which we sort of know each year that, okay, there's a certain amount of machinery and vehicles and things that they're going to replace. So they're built into, I suppose, operational plans and those types of things that we're already considering. But whereas if it wasn't in there and there was a sale of, as I said, a building or a land for some reason during the year, well, they certainly would be coming back to council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll also say Councillor Kanar answered that well, and it's really a very operational issue. It shouldn't be coming to council for that sort of level. And I think read it in its entirety.
Yes.
However, we can't go down to that level because then your council's job is strategic, and staff's job obviously is operational. Council's job is operational, and I just think that's the balance we need to maintain and keep that separation.
Yep.
And read it in the context of the full policy. That's certainly the intent of it.
Yep, thank you. Now we've got mover and seconder for that now. I think I'd like to put that to the motion, to the vote, please. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Yeah. All those against? Motion's passed. Thank you very much, Council. Next we'll move on to 11.3. The adoption of the contract management policy.
Moving a second.
So I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Liprose and seconded by Councillor Howell. For discussion, thank you. The Director.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this contract management policy was put forward for public exhibition, has gone to council a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So tonight it's for noting the information and adopting it. So again, when it went out of public consultation, we didn't get any public submissions provided. However, we did again have extensive consultation within our finance and procurement working group tasked with this job. The main changes included there's the additional objective put in there, inserted into the policy, and it's relating to end-to-end management of the purchase of goods and services. And it's good, and also the emphasis on good procurement practices. It also links back to the legislative requirements that we must adhere to as a council, e.g. Building Construction Security Payment Act 2002. And it's very, very important, and you'll see in there the legislative links, and that's included into there as well in the business paper. But it is very, very important that we are always complying, whether we agree with them or not, but we have to comply with the legislation that's before us. We've added into the stages of contract management into the procurement planning, so there's actually some pre-contract procurement planning going into it, and for approval through the General Manager before we just go out and go to market and try and procure things. So we've improved process around that, and we've also inserted some mandatory requirements that prior payments verification that deliverables had been delivered and accepted within the contract terms. Again, just tightening that up in line with best practice. We've also made some commentary around contractor work health and safety provisions, which was important. And we've also talked about variations that occur from time to time and may require council resolution rather than just accepting it. And that's additional. So that again can make sure that it went to council in the first place. So any variations means it's a trigger for coming back to council as well. There's a mechanism in there for that. Okay. That's it from me.
Thank you. I think this one's been to council and back from council and in the public arena for quite a while, so I'd like to put that one to the vote. Yes, question, Councillor Cook.
Page 69, it says contract values at 150,000 or more are registered in the contracts register. Mm-hmm. Is that like from a model code or something, or is that a figure that we've decided upon?
It's it's a requirement from the Giver Act, so we've got to do that. That's what guides us to do that.
Yeah. But so anything less than 150, is there any transparency for a contract under 150,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
So through you, Mr Mayor. So it depends on the $150,000 is just to trigger to go to tender. If it's less than 150, and it's also sorry, not to tender, but it's also the General Manager's delegations. So underneath that, we also have what they call RFQ, so request for quotes. So our procurement policy goes through that and has different thresholds for different costs. So it depends on obviously something to the value of $5,000. There's a procurement process we have to go through, and then that gets more onerous the more money that council is looking to spend. Up to if it's over 150,000, but it's also on tenders that might be in excess of 2 years or more than 12 months. So there's a few things under the Local Government Act which trigger us to go to tender and have to be on our tender schedule, not just the amount of the tender.
But that's all covered in the procurement policy.
That's as per our procurement policy, and which is also feeds into our internal systems. So when we're generating requisitions and things for stuff, that's all sort of built into it, so that we have to make sure that we're ticking a box to make sure that we're compliant with our procurement policy. So the 150 is what council has elected here. A lot of other councils actually have that set at $250,000, which is under the Local Government Act.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just clicking because I was looking at the table of the amount. If anyone could find it quickly.
Page 194, I think.
Oh, 194. Is that another
That's
policy?
the procurement policy.
Oh, sorry, that's...
Yeah, three, Mr Mayor. I think your answer may be question if we wait till we get to item 11.10, because it's the procurement policy.
You discussed
Oh,
the
okay,
procurement
yeah, that's what I, yeah.
These policies
Yeah.
about...
Yeah, that's what I mean. I can't see what I was...
This was a new policy that was evolved out of the procurement policy,
Okay.
and this was as a result of the self-improvement plan put forward as we've discussed recently. And so this was, it's an improvement on visibility process policy than we had before. So we'll probably deal with that at item 11.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
You'll see your table there.
Yeah, because I was like, I know I read that table.
Alright, councillors, would like to put that one to the recommendation to vote then. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Aye.
And all those against? Carried, thank you. Now, please, if we could just deal with 11.4. I think Councillor Cook, you've...
She's not leaving the room.
Oh, not leaving the room. 11.4, it was just, the minutes were just being tabled at this particular time. It was just purely an input error, but that's all right. We have a mover for the recommendation that the Tourism Committee, move and seconder, sorry, that the Tourism Committee meeting notes just be noted, that's all. Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor McKellar. Nothing really there. No discussion. Oh, Councillor Parlett, you'd like to discuss something on the matter? It's only noting.
Sorry, I'd like to amend the recommendation that Council note the Weddin Shire Council Tourism Committee meeting of the 20th of June. That's it, full stop. For any records of Council, that is how it should be noted. Any other information is already in the minutes. It's noted in the minutes on page 99. So that's the true account of the meeting. I think putting that there is not appropriate minute taking and recording for our meeting.
I think through Mr Chair, I think the intention is that the meeting didn't conclude, so it was I suppose ended prior to the end of the meeting, and it didn't sort of the full agenda wasn't gone through. So to be true and accurate, I suppose the intention was to identify the reason why it was ended without finalising the agenda and formally closing the meeting.
Well, at this point, we had Councillor Parlett has made an amendment to the actual recommendation. Does she have a second for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Diprose. I'd like to vote on that amendment then. Anyone, all those in favour of the amendment that the council note? We have 1, 2, 3. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one's amendment has failed. They actually will put the recommendation then to the vote. Oh, sorry, moving a seconder, sorry.
Did I talk on the...
Yeah, well, the mover for the recommendation, please.
No.
Councillor McKellar, seconder. Yeah, Councillor Howe, sorry, Frame. Yes, now you can... Councillor Cook?
I'm just,
Noting that you've declared an interest in it, Councillor Cook.
yes,
so-
because I was at the meeting. I think Councillor Kanar was at the meeting. He should have declared a conflict of interest as well. But I'm just looking at...
So you're going to speak on a recommendation that you declared an
No,
interest
no,
in?
it's not a recommendation. What I'm just pointing
There's a
out...
recommendation. That's okay. You speak on it, Councillor Cook, then.
No, I'm just saying, on page 97, there is a motion printed in these agenda items that says that the correspondence of the Weddin Shire Tourism Committee meeting of the 20th of June be noted and recorded as tabled, and it has been moved by Councillor Kanar and seconded by Ellie Hind. So there seems to be some typos throughout this, and I just would like to respond when the director said that they were just discussing the agenda items. If you go back, there was no actual items on the agenda, just for noting.
So noted. Anyway, I'd like to put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 2. So pass. Thank you. Move on to 11 point. Catch up now.
11.5.
Yeah, 5. What page is that on?
Page 100.
100, is it?
I've got 100. I'm not sure about yours.
Yep, sorry. 11.5, the draft cyber security policy.
Move on a second.
Do we have a mover and seconder for the draft cyber security policy? Councillor Howell and Councillor Kanar. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kanar. Yep, we'd like to discuss it now, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, this is another policy that was that we previously put up for public exhibition. However, we've made significant changes since the original one. Sorry, sorry, I'll start again. This is This is a new policy, not an amendment of a previous policy. So this will go up for public exhibition. That's what we were proposing for the first time. However, because it's a new policy because there've been substantive changes to it, and it's just around providing clear rules and controls for safeguarding assets and protecting council property, and property being data as well. So the policy aims to ensure that the council complies with the requirements set forth in New South Wales cyber security policy as well. So that guides what we do and what we included in our policies. I'll just go through very quickly. So one of the main triggers for it was that council's insurers advised that our cyber security policy lacked some guidance around return to work practices. So therefore we tightened that process up and put some more commentary around that in the policy. Other small things, grammatical changes have been fixed. Organisational structure details have been fixed. It talks about backups during investigations. That was silent on that before, but that's important to make sure, again, we're protecting data of councils, council's property and data. And then it's about, that's other small changes like device time and power status and things like that. So with that, I'd like to just propose that draft policy is endorsed to put up for a public exhibition.
Yeah. Councillor Dipros?
Yeah, happy to speak for the motion. Just putting so when I read this section 6.411, which is the computer surveillance records piece, I'll just read the relevance piece. It says, Council reserves the right to carry out computer surveillance of any user at any such time that Council chooses without further notice to any user. Council is able to access the following at any time without further notice to any user. And I'll just go to the 5th dot point, which was emails and text messages. So just when I read that, I thought that sounded a bit heavy, as in... so I think councillors know I have a contact that's a specialist in the cybersecurity area. So I sent him a copy of that section and asked him about the emails and text messages bit. So I'm just flagging that I'll be doing a submission, so I'm not going to bog people down, but some of his some of his comments were as follows. Assuming this part of the policy solely refers to employer-provided devices and email/phone numbers, some rough responses. I'm just going to read 4 of them. The council is legally required to inform their employees of any monitoring that takes place. Second point, the council is legally required to limit their monitoring to what is reasonably needed for legitimate business purposes, for example, to ensure proactivity or to prevent misconduct. Third point, council can be held liable if they breach their employees' privacy rights or engage in discriminatory monitoring practices. And the next point, council employees are entitled to access their personal information held by their employer, which may include their browsing history if it can be collected. So I'm just going to, just flagging that I'll do a submission and we'll get the responses and go from there, but I'm happy to support the thing going on public exhibition.
Yep. Okay.
Through there, I'll just comment on that if there's no other questions. Thank you for that, Councillor Dipros. I think that's good. I appreciate any contributions. That's what we want. And I will note also that everything must comply with the Privacy Act as well, and the 1988 Privacy Act. And so obviously in our paper here, we make a reference to all the legislative requirements that we must meet. Yep. It is quite onerous, but it also needs to protect the individual. So we know that point you've made.
Right, councillors, I think that's a good discussion. All those in favour of the recommendation? Aye. All those against? No one against. Thank you very much, councillors. We'll put that one on public display. Next we move on to... Get there.
0.6.
Yeah. 11 point.
That's 114.
I'm getting there. 11.6, rates and charges collection. Move and a seconder. Yeah, moved by Councillor Frame, seconded by Councillor Howell. Getting ahead of me, thank you.
You're good at this. Right. Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to present the rates and charges collection report for the month of June. Just high-level comments. We collected another $394,000 in the month of June, which is positive. And that table compares where our position from May to June, and you can see the improvement there. So we've now collected 4.298 mil up to the end of June. The following table on page 115, I won't go through in detail other than to say that we've got total outstanding rates now for 2023 and 2024 is 474,000. So obviously that has changed from 2023 and a deterioration. In percentage terms, that represents 10.81% of our rates collection in arrears. And we note also that it's above the OLG benchmark, which requires you to have less than 10% in this area. That is an area of focus, and we will continue to put more resources as we are now getting them into rates collection. Obviously, noting the difficulty and the challenge in that, but just being proactive in that process and making sure that we can collect, but also we need to collect, but also can collect in a way that's going to be able to be sympathetic to the reasons why people are behind their rates at the moment. That's all I wanted to say on that report. So back to you, Mr.
I will make a comment. I know I say this every time, but if anyone is having trouble with their rates, make sure they come and speak to the staff. Staff are very sympathetic, as John's pointed out, very sympathetic to organising and payment plans and stuff like that. So please take advantage of it if you need to and come and see the staff, that's all. Any more discussion on that? Councillor Cook?
I'm just wondering your opinion, Director. It's great that we got an extra nearly 400,000. I'm just wondering, I see the number of the cases being monitored by debt collection is 58, and it's been 58 for quite a while. And it doesn't seem to me that you would have that much collection and not reduce your caseload in collections through the...
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cook. You're exactly right. And that's where my comment around more resources being applied into that area, and I believe that we're more effective to actually probably collect more with an internal, through internal means, than external. So there's going to be a cost benefit analysis here, and a point where it's actually appropriate for us to collect internally.
Yep.
So that is an area that we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, no, and I'm fully supportive of that, but I'm just thinking, is there some, I suppose, a KPI of the external collectors? Because it's been on 58 for quite a while. And it just, do they, I mean, again, that's operational, but is there some sort of tracking on, the cases coming down, or do they give you that sort of information?
Not really, through Mr. Mayor, not as per se, but it's a function, it's a function of being proactive from the council's side and also from their side in terms of moving that forward, but I'm not aware of any benchmarking.
I'm just thinking, if we're paying them a fee, per number of, cases, that just seems like that probably something.
We pay on a basis of collection rather than cases.
Okay.
So really, they won't get anything unless they collect. So we're not losing out there.
Chair, that might be monitoring someone where they go onto a payment plan. They're still monitoring them, but they might be just doing little payments along the way to try and pay that off. So it still sits there as part of. It's one of the ones
ongoing collection
monitored. That doesn't mean that they actually go and get the money and they pay straight away. A lot of them go onto that payment plan, and they'll monitor them to make sure they're committing to that payment plan, I suppose. So that's why that number might stay fairly static there for a little while until they start coming. It depends on how much money they've got to.
Well, hopefully at some point people pay the bill off.
Yeah, well, and that's the idea.
It can
take a while, but you'll slowly over time, once they go into payment plans, they should start filtering off.
And then they could have the negative incoming rates.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We sort of got some coming on, some coming off.
Yeah.
So I was, 3 years there, yes, some of them are quite long-term debts that are outstanding, and obviously people are doing what they can to pay it off. We acknowledge that, but we also believe that it's not so much a focus of what's out there. We feel we've got good controls. It's not a concern of us, the number of cases. It's more we believe we are better as council to engage with our ratepayers and have an external collector doing the job. So we believe that we're actually effective in what we're doing, and we're comfortable with how we're going with that.
And
going
so
forwards.
definitely, I think internally would be much better because you know the people.
So there's no real concern or downside or risk there from our side.
Okay, we've got to move and second for that report. Actually, I'll have to put that to the vote, please. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. Everyone's passed. Move on to 11.7, the statement of bank balances. We have a mover and a seconder. Yes, moved by Councillor Knar, seconded by Councillor McKellar.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So item 11.7, the statement of bank balances. You can see that our cash at bank has improved considerably in the last month. So you'll see our operating account, our Westpac account, 11 million, and then the short-term deposits have not changed since last month. They sit at 7 million, and they're listed out there for you as well with the rates that we're earning. We're constantly monitoring what are the best rates out there for us to earn the most money, and you will see more in the July report anyway in terms of that. But we look for the most competitive and commercially beneficial rates in our term deposits. The next section looks at restricted and unrestricted cash balances. You'll also note we had an unrestricted cash balance of
Previously?
Yes, previously it was 5,000 in the last month, whereas now we've got an unrestricted cash balance of 5.7 million. That's very healthy now, and we were in a position. I just want to acknowledge the effort that's been made by our general manager and our staff in applying pressure to those funding bodies to actually provide that funding. And we didn't even know until the last day of the financial year that money was coming in. So it was a mammoth effort. We've got the money in, and we're now, as council, I think, comfortable in with our unrestricted cash balance, and we're just monitoring that carefully as we progress through the year. And I've just noted here also that the main contributors to that was obviously the 85% of the financial assistance grant came in. giving us 3.37 million, and also the tripartite natural disaster funding, the 20% up front of our upper limit came in as well. So that's roughly 2.4 mil. So that's where the 5.7 additional came from effectively, and you'll see that 5.7 coincidentally is now our unrestricted cash balance. So it was very line ball in the absence of that.
Councillor Diprose?
Just a question. I see that as a moving figures, as in, like, I'm not seeing nearly $6 million saying, well, that's money we could spend on other stuff. I'm sort of seeing it as that'll come up and down and go all over the place. That's pretty accurate, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, for you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Cook?
Just on page 117, the FAGS grant and the natural disaster funding, you've got the words approximate next to that. Is that the figures or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have rounded them. I don't think it's necessary to put I didn't think it was necessary to put the actual amount. I've just put it in there as an approximate number.
So, but we're pretty sure we've got that money in.
Well, we
yeah.
have that. This is statement of fact from what's in the account.
Yep. And the second question I've got is the figure total restricted cash, the 12 million up there. Is the FAGS grant included in that top line of restricted for that? Because at the 30th of June, well, if you could explain it to me, if the FAGS grant is for the next year, is that included in that restricted amount for the 30th of June?
For you, Mr. Mayor, no. There's no restriction around financial assistance grant.
Okay, even though years aren't, doesn't matter what year it's for? Because I know last year we had to have it in a restricted amount because it was prepaid.
For you, Mr. Mayor, that change happened 12 months ago, but prior to that, yes, it had to be restricted.
Yep.
But they released that, and last year was the first year where it was become unrestricted.
Okay, yes, and it's not now tied to the year.
No.
That's great. And then the second question is that internal and external restrictions?
That's, for you, Mr. Mayor, that's external.
External. So do internals need to be included in that figure as well?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I think that that gets reported into the QBRS, so you'll see that.
Yeah, I have. That's why, because that in the QBRS you've got 3476 and the external of 12312, which is what and that adds it to a total of 15788, which that's what I was trying to work out. If that are they different figures or do they have to be like the restricted amount is the internal restrictions have to be kept in the bank as well?
For you, Mr. Mayor, the internal allocations are resolved at council, and they should be. There's no requirement. They should be. In a best practice world,
Yep.
we would want to keep them internally available, and the purpose is, and that's why they get put into the QBRS, which is
Yep.
a public document that the Office of Local Government looks at to ensure that. I mean, obviously, the employee entitlements would be a big one,
Yeah,
and other things, and we want to make sure that money is available.
Yep.
So it is put in there, and we look at it, we treat it as restricted. It's not technically restricted.
That's probably the bit I was trying to get my head around.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I couldn't work out the difference between
Yeah.
the figure reported later and the figure reported now. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. And all those against? So carried. Thank you very much. Next, we move on to 11.8, the quarterly business review statement. QBRS. I can skip one over. Yeah, I'll move it in a second for the recommendations on the QBRS. Moved by Councillor Diprose, second by Councillor Howell. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'd like to present the June quarter QBRS to Council. This wasn't provided last year, but I feel it's important to provide the last quarter to you. So here it is today. I want to make some high-level comments around that if I can. So firstly, the report's made up of your budgeted profit or loss by program. And remembering we revised the budget in our February meeting, profit and loss by fund, financial position or balance sheet by fund, and then a report on contracts, consultants, legal budget review. And then this is where Councillor Cook, you were referring to reserves, internal allocations and external restrictions. So that's in there as well. And then lastly, the Council's capital program. So I'll just go through and try and pick out some highlights because there's a lot of information here, I appreciate. So one of the main ones, if we can focus on the flood disaster grant packages. So no change in the June quarter, only packages 3 and 6 have been approved. The others we're still awaiting approval. And that's in the infrastructure section, just jumping around a little bit here. But that's the, I made a point here about we put a lot of pressure on government ministers, Office of Local Government, the tri-part funding bodies to ensure that we did receive that cash, so we didn't breach our unrestricted, didn't breach our restricted cash, so we get that in surplus. If I go back to, I'll just look at the corporate services and governance. We earned $249,000 in interest received, bank interest received for the year, so that's good. And then again, it just gives us more money to available to repurpose, if you like, for council function. Points. Environmental services, we allocated, the council's already, for a previous resolution, allocated $100,000 to a diversity waste management fund, which you will see in the next QBRS, or council will see in the next QBRS, and then obviously in the 2025 year we will then also transfer a further $150,000 into that. At this stage it's $100,000 as of June. Infrastructure services, I think we've just leave that for your noting, other than what I've said. Corporate services, council's now implemented its first stage of its IT upgrade in authority, 7.1. So stage 1 was an enterprise risk resource management. So what we've done in the QBRS budget in the 2025, obviously we have transferred anything that was not spent in that capital budget across into the 2025. So we haven't exhausted it. It's still allocated. It's still there for the other 3 upgrades to take place, and they'll take place over the 2025 year. We would anticipate that the asset management program will be the next one, but there's also electronic services, electronic funding, etc. to come through. We're continuing to focus on strengthening IT and cyber security as we move into the 2025 year. We have rolled out some in the June quarter. We've rolled out some IT and cyber security awareness training for staff, and it's been well received by staff. But also, we'll continue to provide more training in that area. But that's obviously we think that's a very, very important area for council. Internal audit, we have also, that's now in progress, but we moved that budget into 2025 for, and we'll talk about that in the September quarter, where the internal audit function will start commencing, where we'll engage external as well as internally perform that function. So I make reference to the long-term financial plan. So that's obviously in the IPNR, the whole framework, which is being developed into the next year. And some commentary around work health and safety. I'll leave that information for your review. There's a lot in there, I appreciate that, but I'll hand back to you, Mr. Chair, and happy to take questions.
My comment would be thank you very much for yourself and the staff for the work on that. I particularly like your commentary on all the different issues, like the different areas of it, and I think that's it's worthwhile. I think if the community wants to have a look at it, that's a good place to start looking at your comments on all the different areas that you're dealing with and how. And I get a real feeling with these budgets that we're on the right track now, if you know what I mean. I sort of feel we were lost a little bit there for a little while, and I really feel like with your leadership, John, we're now moving in the right direction, and these budgets are coming out better and better every quarter. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Any comments from the? Oh, yep, Councillor Diprose.
Just two things. I reiterate Paul's comments there. The reference to the Work Health and Safety Incidents Investigation Report, when I read that initially, I was concerned that it looked like there wasn't going to be any money left over for some types of training. For example, if the next term of council agrees to look at a special rate variation, then I think it's really important that new councillors receive training on financials, that sort of stuff. So I met with the acting general manager and the director corporate services, and it was shown line by line the detailed budget underneath that, and I'm completely comfortable that the incoming council will be able to do what they need to do, which is important. And the second point is just, not know if this is related to financial, but reference is made to the 3 Civica modules, and particularly the customer response management system one, which is something I've been had my eye for about 3 years. I guess a level of confidence that that will be actually delivered in the next financial year, because we agreed to defer it pending the upgrades, and it was also suggested that that system would be accessible via the website. So I'm just curious to know whether at this stage it looks like that might be done by the end of next financial year or this financial year.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. At this stage, that's the latest information I have in terms of when it's coming online, when it'll be ready to go. And that's just, with IT, it's a bit of a moving feast in terms of what you find along the way and how long things take to implement. The process is, you've got to do the back end of it to make sure it's ready for front end interfacing, with the community, to have, engagement that way. So at this stage, yes, but we'll keep informing you if things changes.
As I say, Councillor Diprose, I think I commend you for going and seeing the director regarding those issues prior to the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Cook.
I concur. Thank you, John. I love having the QBRS for June, because there is a significant gap if you don't have it till September, which is not released till October or November. So that was a big gap of finances. So yes, I'm really happy to see this. I will congratulate you on the figures, and I'm just looking at one though, materials and contracts, where we've saved some money, which is excellent. Always good to reduce your expenses, increase your income and reduce your expenses. That's the aim of the game. But if I look at page 161, and I know this is something that we have spoken about, but I just want some clarity. It's the disaster grants, or the disaster recovery work. We had it as 27 million, the total figure, and we thought we were going to complete 40% was the equation, but it says we've got 4 million. So that to me is not 40%, and I'm just wondering how that goes at the end of the year. Is that, will you adjust the accrual, or is that a last year adjustment that we will have to do again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this particular grant will constantly change because of the nature of it. So there's upper limits. Of 6 packages, 2 have been approved, 4 haven't. So we don't know what they are, and we're in the process of trying to lock those in at this stage. So
the total of the 27 million.
Correct.
Is just what rolled over from last year. At the end of last year was an accrual. So, and our income figure was based on, we're going to this year get to 40% of that work being completed.
That was in the budget.
Yeah.
That was the best known at the time. Things changed. They have the Transport New South Wales have taken, I suppose, longer than we would have expected to have approved funding, and in the absence of that, without the cash provided from them, we can only do what we can do in terms of roads. So we didn't get to the 40%.
Yep.
So we will just roll that over, and I have rolled that over into the 2025 budget, so that what you will see in every QRS is the inaccurate position of where we're at now.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for that, but I'm just I'm just thinking it's going to make our accruals because that income will go from 27 or 12, which was the 40% figure, down to 4. So that's an $8 million difference that we're going to be reporting in our financials at the end of the year.
Yeah, through Mr Chair, it's an in and out, so it's revenue, but also expenses reduced as well.
Yep.
So the net effect is nil.
Yep. And the
Yep.
other one question is on page 143. We've got some projects that have been completed, but on the side it says completed and 98, 96 and 95% paid. Where's that 2%, 4% and 5%? Is that project management fees that we haven't been able to collect?
Through Mr Chair, no. That's just, it wasn't quite completed.
Okay,
So we're
cool.
reminding
Yep.
that the trigger to claim it is when it's completed, and it wasn't quite completed.
Okay,
And a lot of this, you will also know from previous reports that a lot of this was held back and then rolled into the 2025 year. So RMCC, actually, Transport New South Wales, said no, we will not do this in 2024 year. We will roll it into 2025. So whatever we did, we just had to put a line in it. We didn't actually complete those things that we thought we would, but we got close.
yeah, no, or maybe then it's just a type, well not a typo, but maybe the way that's reported, because it maybe should say 98% completed and paid. Because what's saying it's completed, but only 98% paid.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted that. That's
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Yep. That makes it easy to understand.
Yeah, because it's
Certainly
saying
include that.
completed but not fully paid is what the way I read that.
Through Mr Chair, that's exactly what I want to hear. So I want to improve these documents so that they are usable and readable and understandable. So thank you.
No, great, and I love seeing the June one in there, that's great.
Good.
Very good. Okay, councillors, we'd like to just, we've got to move in a second. I'd like to put that over the QBRS to the vote, please. All those in favour, show of hands. All those against, unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to 11.9, the librarian's report, please, John. Oh, sorry, moving a second. I've only been doing this for 12 years. That's right. Moved by Councillor Frame, seconded by Councillor McKellar. Thank you. I'm sure we used to do it afterwards.
Through Mr Chair, I'd like to just table the librarian's report as well. Now, this is a 5-month period, but again, we're aligning it into this into a quarterly time frame. So you've got financial, but you've got tourism, and you've got library. All of the activities all cycling into the same period, and I really just provide this for notation. In the period to June, that'll show you what the activity is. You'll also see in the next report some further activity, and we look forward to, we had a productive meeting, obviously it's outside the June period, but we had a productive meeting with the State Library New South Wales, who came down, and we had a good outcome there, so watch this space for more information in the next report. But there are some significant benefits that we expect to be able to provide to the community in the library.
Very good. I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour, please. All those against? Thank you. Yeah, we'll move on to 11.10, the adoption of the procurement policy. That's the Director of Corporate Services, but I'll put it to the recommendation that Council notes the information report and adopts the procurement policies. Moved by Councillor Diprose, seconded by Councillor Howell. I'm moving it around a bit. Director could speak on the procurement policy, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So this was the policy that I mentioned before, the adoption of the procurement policy. Again, it went out to public exhibition. We didn't receive any submissions, but again, we have conducted extensive internal consultation to try and better the draft policy. The main changes we've included linkages to legislation like the Building Construction Security Payment Act, again, which I referenced before. In the contract management policy, clarification on the exemptions of tender requirements and reducing the number of exemptions. We just wanted to simplify it a little bit and make it a bit clearer what's in and what's out in terms of exemptions to tender requirements. Clearer headings for clarity. Ensuring the principles around communicating with tenderers also applies to suppliers and consultancies who do not meet the tender threshold. And that's all about having clearer, transparent communication, and also making sure that everything's done in an ethical and professional manner. We wanted to make sure that parameters for tenders also applied for quotations. So that was an improvement there, and again, making it more consistent, and consolidating information on the panel of contractors. So making sure that the same rules apply to the establishment of all panel of contractors, regardless if it's providing supplies or a service. And also further information on breaching of the procurement policy, which we thought was important. So with that, I'll just hand it back to you, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
My comment would be it's fairly involved and it's a very in-depth policy. I suppose internally, is it something that's easy to follow? You know.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, is that's built into our authority system now. So I mean our delegations. So yes, it can be time consuming sometimes, but it's quite important so that everyone's covered. I suppose at the end of the day, we're spending the public's money, so we should be doing that.
So
in an appropriate manner.
The authority system works it through.
So there's process to go. So there has to be multiple people sign off on things. The person who goes and gets the quotes can't be the person who's signing off for the payment and those types of things as well. So all that's built in there, and obviously in the system, if generally, if you haven't followed the procurement process in terms of some of the thresholds, it actually comes up and tells you that you haven't complied, or so there are a few checks and balances in there.
Yeah. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, also there's a lot of procedural things inside this policy.
Yeah.
So at this stage, we thought it was most prudent to just continue the way we've got it, but obviously a lot of the procedural information will come out into a separate procedures document.
That's
which we're doing, and that aligns to obviously our internal systems. Yeah. It's making sure that those talk to each other, and that we can actually enact what we're saying we're doing in our policy.
Yeah. Any discussions, councillors? Just noting that it's been on display for 28 days. So, Councillor Cook.
Probably what would we call it? IT glitches. It says there's two attachments. One is a marked up policy, and one with track changes, and one without. I can't see any track changes. So, is it not being changed?
Through Mr. Chair, it is possible that the track changes hasn't made it into the papers, but I think it's there. I can see it now.
I couldn't see any changes that popped out. There's one that's a website being added, but no, that's all right. Just so we know that there might not be track changes. The other question, which is going back to one I had before, page 173, is this table that I was talking about. Is this aligning with the model code, and my concern is on the delegation or the limits that we're having, because there's no procurement that comes before council until it's 250,000, and that seems like a really high figure to me.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the Local Government Act was actually changed to put it went from 150 to 250. So we actually haven't gone to 250. We've stuck with 150 in terms of that tender process and contracts. So
below the standard.
Yeah. So we're actually below that. The reason why we've stuck with 150 is under there's certain contracts that we have to put on a contract register, and we have that on our website. So it's actually under some other, I think it's the GIPA Act, that we actually have to report on that. So rather than having this confusing thing where the Local Government Act says, well, we only have to put contracts over 250, on there, but the GIPA says 150. We've stuck with the 150 as the threshold. So yes, the general manager's delegations are up to 250,000. Anything over 250,000 has to come to council, but the procurement policy obviously has to be followed in terms of all those thresholds below 250. So you'll see in there where it goes from anything from a verbal quote for minor things less than 3,000, I think it is, right up to you start progressing through to say, look, you need 2, or a competitive process, 2 written quotes, to we end up with an RFQ, or like a request for quotation process, through to RFT, a request for tender, which goes through a website. I think it's Vendor Panel that we use. So there's a fair bit of work that goes into all those. So we've chosen those thresholds based on the types of things. But even though it may not come to council, there are checks and balances under the procurement policy and within our systems to make sure there's multiple people looking at.
I suppose thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
But my question was, the tender process is between 150 and 250,
Yep.
but then that's still at the general manager's discretion. It doesn't come to council until over 250.
Mhm.
So that even though you might have a tender process,
Yep.
it's not something that the council will see.
Not necessarily, depends on the situation. So there's other things in there. Say if it was being awarded to a council employee or someone, then yes, they do have to go through and it will be reported to council, and we've had one of those in the past. But yes, if it's within the general manager's delegations, same as all of us are, I suppose, below the general manager, we can only sign off things to our delegation limit. The general manager's delegation limit is 250,000. So, yeah.
Which was previously adopted.
Through you, Mr Chair, I will say, I'm jumping the gun, but you will see in the infrastructure section, there is something put towards council that is only 185,000. So obviously that's below the 250.
Yeah. Yes.
So it is subject to the general manager's discretion, and the general manager may have discretion to put it to council to look at. So there will be examples. It's not just there's a line, anything under 250 you don't see, because it'll come down to the general manager's discretion there. So you may still see things under 250, and you will tonight. Yeah.
Very good.
So, yeah.
Can I just
suggest
that these decisions, these delegations have already been approved by council and relate to operational matters that often have a time frame that needs to be adhered to. And that's the reason why we've given these delegations.
Exactly. Yeah, previously approved. Thank you. All right, well, I'll put that one to the vote then, please. All those in favour of the recommendation? All right. All those against? Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor. Let's move on to... It's quite a lengthy policy. It'll take us a while to go through it.
Page 212.
212. That's so familiar. Oh yeah, we'll just move on to the infrastructure service report. Just before we do, councillors, I'd just like to. I just heard the sad passing today of a long-term former employee of council. Doug Pipes passed away, and I really think the council and the community would like to pass our condolences on to Anne and the family, and wish them all the support in a terrible time. So Doug was an employee on council. I think he was a storeman for many years, and for a long time an integral part of this council. So it's very sad to hear it. So thank you. Yep. So just 12.1 is a business case for the procurement of a skid steer road planer. Do we have a move and a seconder? No, move for different. Second, by Councillor McKellar. Dear to my heart, this one.
Good evening, councillors. Through the chair, good evening, councillors. Asking for your approval of the acquisition of a road planer which will significantly save costs and provide productivity gains, and most importantly, a smooth drive around the Shire roads when it gets here and gets put into use. Just very quickly, I know the report's in there, but you know, over a 10-year period, it has been calculated to potentially save the council over $2 million. So I'll leave it up to yous.
Yeah. My comments on, I think this is terrific. I really appreciate the business case for it. I've been at other items where other mayors and others have talked about cutting down their grader blades to 2 foot because they're not getting paid to, resurface the whole road. They're only getting paid to do repairs on small sections, and this road planer is something that'll be able to allow us to do that and allow us to do better repairs and with longevity. I do think the broom is something which we should be looking at because all the road works, the blue metal on top of it, the broom is a really handy item, that's all. So
Look, we'll get that next meeting.
next meeting. Any comments?
Wanted to start off slow.
Yeah.
We'll have a go.
Any comments here? Will it require much training of staff? Or?
Well, we've got an experienced guy who has used one of our people that has used one before, and he's intending to train one of the younger civil employees in its safe and productive use.
Just off the picture, we were going for a closed-in cab air conditioned, are we? Or?
I believe so.
Yes, it is. Yep, sorry, it is. Yeah. No. Any questions, councillors? Councillor McKellar?
Does council have the facility to move that around, or we've got to use a low loader?
Well, at the moment we have to use the low loader, but with John's team and our asset engineer, they're looking for the plant replacement policy that's coming up to make it a compact unit to put a tipper truck and a small trailer in the future so it's an independent operation that can run around itself without needing that low loader that you mentioned, Stuart. Not councillor.
Any other comments, councillors? No comments?
No, that's great.
Okay, well, I'd like to put this to the motion. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you very much, councillors. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We can move.
Infrastructure report 12.2.
I'll get me, I'll call for it.
Sorry.
We have a mover and a seconder for the report. Thank you, Councillor Canar and Councillor Howell. Thank you very much.
All right, 12.2, as John's already mentioned, we are awaiting Transport for New South Wales to approve a few of the disaster packages, 2, 4, 5 and 7. Currently we are working on package 3 and 6, and we can't work on anything that hasn't been approved because they won't pay us for it, regardless of how bad the roads are. But the good news is on package 3, we're almost got that fully complete. We have just finished Henry Lawson Way, Young, the patches there. Driftway Road hopefully will be finished next week, subject to weather. And the good news is we've started on Marangarel Road this week, and it's in progress to finish within a month, subject to weather.
Is road marking, is that considered it has to be done for full completion? We don't get them to come here very often, that's all.
Yeah, look, generally I gather they will pay us without the line marking, but ideally we're going to try to focus with our engineers to finish the full scope of work in future so that nothing's left behind.
Okay. Just wondering about the payment, that's all.
What have we got? We have got a few challenges, as the report says, of cold weather work at the moment, so that we are working accordingly with that. The RNCC work is sort of ground to a bit of a halt because of the cold weather work, although they are doing RMAP work, which is the maintenance repair side of things, which they can do. Greenthorpe Kurawatha is progressing well and is set to finish by mid-September, although it has been delayed with the couple of weeks rain we've had. Heathcote's Lane, finished. Engineers have spoken with the people in the Grenfell Cemetery disabled unisex toilets, so that's in progress and happening in the background, getting prefabricated for us, and that is set to finish in October this year. The Bogalong Dam report we're waiting on from Public Works Department for the declassification of that structure, and we're working with the Bogalong Dam Committee regarding that. Sheeting, well, we are going to start some resheeting works once I get my head around the this year's budget program that John and his team are assisting me with, and a full program of works up until the end of this financial year is hoping to be finished within a month, or well within a month. So you will all get to see it next meeting, or be available next meeting. No, nothing majorly to report in terms of plant breakdowns. And as for the main road, they are continuing to just quickly finish some of the disabled parking marking in front of IGA, and the bollards have been ordered that will be put in the shared parking area to protect those people when they get out of their cars at those locations. That's about it.
Comments, Councillor Diprose?
Question? Excellent report, thank you. I've got a constituent that lives at the end of Peaks Creek Road, and I see that's in package number 2, and I apologise, I think you did say where that's up to. Package number 2 is where?
Hasn't been.
Yeah, it hasn't been approved, I'm afraid,
It's
Councillor,
been-
and
it's been-
that's the main reason. You know, I have spoken to Karen and Laura in that street, in that road, and I've gone up there and seen that road, but we haven't forgotten about them. And I said, well, we're waiting on approval, and the moment we get the money allocated, we'll get in there and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Been copping a bit of heat about that one for sure.
Definitely. Councillor McKellar?
Just a question in regards to Ballandine Road Causeway. How long before you hope that'll be open?
They've just got to, in the answer, hopefully within a week.
That'd be terrific.
Yeah, I know.
The concrete works look terrific.
All right, thank you, Councillor.
Good. No other comments? In that case, I'll put that one to... Councillor Cook?
Just a question with regard to the markings and the signs. I was downtown the other day, and where the medical centre is, we've now got the disability parking, disabled parking, and on the other side of the road, there is a loading zone now. And you can't, so anyone who is not disabled and not got a ute can't park near the doctor's surgery now. Because there was a few down there, but they're all completely taken, like from where Unwind is a little bit up. So I'm sort of thinking that loading zone, if we can maybe rethink it. Because people who are going to the doctors they don't park in the disabled, they park across the road, and they can't because it's a loading zone. And I was sitting there in Unwind.
Well,
There was a couple of people who parked there and then went, oh, hold on.
we'll have to take it on notice and get back to you, Councillor.
Yep. It's not my area of expertise at all, but I was just sitting there and watching this go on, and people, because it was one of those rainy days, and the people kept driving up and round and round and round and going to the roundabout, coming back down the street because there was no parking.
There's still plenty of parking on that side of the street though. Councillor Frame?
Just in regard to that loading zone, the original plans that we have on the website for the main street, that is supposed to be a timed loading zone, but never had the times fitted to the signs.
Oh, okay, so this could be a simple
And
result.
General Manager took that on notice a couple of months ago to see about getting the times fitted, because it was specific morning and afternoon
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
Simple
be, that would
loading
fix the
times,
problem,
yeah, which would fix the
Very
Yeah.
good.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, thank you. Now let's put that one to the vote. All those in favour, please. Raise your hands. All those against? Thank you very much, councillors. 12.3, request for new streetlight installation near the Grenfell Preschool and Daycare Centre. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Parlett, seconded by Councillor McKellar.
Oh, that one, we're just asking that you allow the Acting Director of Infrastructure to allow a 28-day period to respond. We want to let the adjoining landowners have their say before we put the requested pole up, in case they have objections to the new street light going up there, and then if we have no objections from that notice period, that you allow the Acting Director of Infrastructure to proceed to engage Essential Energy to install the street light.
You know, as per that wording, if there's no objections received, if there is objections, then you're going to bring it back to council again? Is that that would be the...
Well, yeah, I suppose we will have to.
Yeah, as per the wording, that's all.
Yep.
So, Councillor Diprose?
I just think with Andy, we can't delegate below the general manager. So,
Oh, okay.
so I don't know if that needs to be an amendment, but
Okay, no
That's not-
worries. Yeah,
just
all
follow
right.
the picture.
Change me to change that role to GM. No problem.
we don't,
Let's work for you.
we don't need to have an, that's just,
No, well, it's not really an amendment, it's a mistake in the actual... So.
yeah, that's right. Cool, thank you.
I think. No other comments, councillors? No questions?
Very straightforward.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Yep, so moved. Thank you, councillors. Move on to 13, their environmental services report. Weddin Shire Disability Inclusion Action Plan for 2024 to 2028. We have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that council notes the report and adopts the Weddin Shire Disability Inclusion Action Plan. Councillor Frame, Councillor Howell, thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you,
Mr.
Mr.
Acting
Chair.
GM.
So, as councillors will be aware, the draft policy was presented to a previous council meeting, be placed on public exhibition. So, as part of that, we received one submission. So I thank Councillor Diprose for his comments in relation to the policy. So, as a result of that, there has been a minor update to the policy. So council's required to have a disability inclusion action plan under the Disability Inclusion Act. So our current policy is overdue for renewal. So we had the draft policy, put it out for public exhibition. There's the one minor change was to include in one of the focus areas that if we have any areas that may have a significant impact on people with a disability, that we actually consult with known service providers or people who deal with people with a disability at that time. So I suppose the wording in it is to say if it's got a significant impact on those. I think the issues raised were around obviously some of the signage and the disabled car parking that was in the main street. So the policy is actually a bit of it's a strategic document. So rather than sort of narrowing down onto individual things, it's sort of trying to keep that broad approach to say, look, if we do down the track have things like a change to disabled car parking, that we consult with known known agencies that are in town that deal with people with a disability, just to give them that information as part of that public consultation process. So obviously it goes out to the wider community, but also anyone that we know of at that time. Trying to identify particular agencies is a little bit hard, given that the policy lasts for 4 years. They can change. So it's sort of probably just keeping it as a broader approach. So the policy itself, it's got 4 focused areas. So the first being positive community attitudes and behaviours. Second, creating livable communities. Third, supporting access to meaningful employment. And the fourth, improving access to mainstream services through better systems and processes. So the policy is based on the requirements under the Act and also the New South Wales Disability Inclusion Action Plan. So within each of those focused areas, there's some key tasks that we are basically committing to over the life of the policy. As I said, they're a broader thing. The key tasks are also broken down into some time frames and who's responsible for those. The policy itself also aids, I suppose, the future council in terms of setting some of those IP&R documents down the track. So, and trying to focus in on some of those key tasks that we are looking at doing. So some of those will be limited by funds and subject to grant funding, but it's certainly around council's attitude, thinking about people with a disability down the track, particularly when we're planning whether it be major events or new facilities. Obviously we've got Taylor Park going ahead, which is one thing that will sort of contribute to that, but yeah, down the track looking at even things like footpaths and where it links to certain areas in town that we need to sort of think about down the track. So the draft policy's there with a recommendation that council adopt it.
Yeah. It's a pretty important policy when you see how many people are, say that they're living with a disability in the Weddin Shire. It's a very, very high figure. So it's very important. Councillor Parlett, comment?
I note that it was formerly referred to Community Health, the Weddin Health Council and Weddin Interagency. Did we get any feedback or input from?
No, I didn't receive. So we sent it to those, but we sent it to all those individual agencies as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, we didn't get any formal feedback from.
Probably time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's where our wellness plan and our wellness committee used to be able to feed that information back. So we're activating that again. So
yeah. And I suppose this is a strategic document too. So it's not. I mean, it's not a lot. There are some key tasks, but it is a broader approach. So it's not narrowing it down and say if it's not in the policy we can't do it. It obviously looks at thinking out the whole area or the whole Shire moving forward over the next 4 years.
No other comments, councillors? No? That one, I'll put that policy to the meeting. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Yeah. All those against? Thank you very much, councillors. We'll move on to 13.2, development applications, construction certificates and complying developments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that's just outlining that was just the one construction certificate last month that was approved under delegation, noting that, yeah, we had a few of the DAs were all approved by council last month, there was about 3 of the larger ones, including the motel and so forth, that went through council rather than under delegation. That's just for noting.
So things are slowed down, but they're probably all the builders are busy putting roofs on.
Yeah.
Delegates report. We don't have any delegates reports. And nothing in closed. We're moving to closed council, but there's no items in closed council, is there?
Yep.
There is. Oh, sorry, I thought that was removed. Sorry.
No, so 15.2, 15.3.
Okay, so we'd like to
Want
move.
to announce while we're going into closed council?
Yes, I will announce while we're going in closed council. You got on there? Which one is it?
No, 15.2 is the first one.
15.2. Yes, we're going in closed council now. 15.2. The matter is considered to be confidential under section 10A.2 D1 of the Local Government Act 1993, and council is satisfied that discussions of this matter in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to the public interest, as it deals with commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudices a commercial position of the person who supplied it. And sorry,
Both of those
and
same.
both of those are the same. So we're also closing the meeting for 15.3 and 15.4. These matters are considered to be confidential under section 10A.2 C, D1 and D2 and D3 of the Local Government Act 1993, and council is satisfied the discussion of these matters in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to the public interest, as it deals with information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposing to conduct business with. Commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudices the commercial position of that person who supplied it. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council, and information that would, if disclosed, reveal a trade secret. Councillors like to have who'd like to move that we moved into closed council? Councillor Parlett, and seconded by Councillor Diprose. All those in favour? No. Thank you. All those against? So moved. We're just going to move into closed now. I'd just like to ask councillors. We're just returning to open council. The results of the closed council, 15.2 was the Weddin Shire Council's lease of the dental surgery. Resolution number 16024 was council note the information contained in the report and delegates the General Manager to sign the revised lease agreement or letter in accordance with the information contained in the report. That was carried. 15.3 was council's entering into a contract for supply, delivery and or installation of guardrails and wire rope safety fencing. Resolution 161-24. That council note the information contained in the report and delegates the General Manager to accept and sign contracts with RBK Pty Ltd trading as Top Notch Fencing and Western Safety Barriers Group Pty Ltd for the supply, delivery and or installation of guardrails and wire rope safety fencing. And 3 was requested the General Manager write to the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation and notify them of their decision. We move on to 15.4, which was entering into the contract for the supply and delivery of bitumen emulsion, Resolution 162-24. Councils note the information contained in the report and they delegate the General Manager to accept and sign a contract with Bitupave Limited for the supply and delivery of bitumen emulsion. And 3 was requesting that the General Manager then write to Central New South Wales JO and notify them of our decision. That's it. Thank you everyone for their attendance at the meeting tonight. Thank you the directors and Luke for acting General Manager. And we'll close the meeting. We have a move and a second to close the meeting. Moved by Councillor Canard, seconded by Councillor Howe. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody.